Kalimera and good morning. Last week during Facebook's 5-hour power outage last Monday, a celebrity posted on social media something that really stuck with me. They said, "What is the world coming to?" Today I actually had to call my Instagram friends and describe my salad to them. Okay. Well, I thought it was funny, whatever. The moral of the story is, of course, how reliant we are on these things. And for a power outage for Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, etc., for many people, it was very much a black hole during those 5 hours. I read about the impact of this, by the way, on small businesses and so forth. Some people who rely on Facebook so much to sell their products that for 5 hours of no sales for a retail shop, that's actually quite a hit. That's quite impactful. Maybe not so much on big business, although they felt it as well. But it seemed like everybody was affected in some way, some major way that the culture definitely felt. It was the longest power outage I read that Facebook has ever had since 2008. But in 2008, they had 80 million users. Today, they have 3 billion users. Unbelievable, unbelievable. And so for those 5 hours last Monday, many of us may have, by the way, felt that as well. It was Presbitera's birthday that day, and we were looking forward to reading comments from family and friends and things like that. But either way, for all of us, we felt that impact. There was like a void there last Monday. There was a void for those 5 hours, a black hole, if you will, for us as a society and in other parts of the world who rely on Facebook just for the internet and things like this. In any case, it was quite an impact. It was quite an impact on the worldwide community. Are there other areas of our life, my brothers and sisters, where perhaps not electronically, but in other areas of our life, spiritually, physically, emotionally, there are moments that we also find ourselves with some kind of a void, some kind of a black hole, if you will? Do we feel this perhaps with our self-esteem at certain times? Do we feel this financially at times? Do we feel this with our identity at times? Are there times in our life where we feel this kind of emptiness, this kind of hole in the middle of our life, in the middle of our day, in the middle of our week, our month? Does it happen often? And in those moments, how do we react? How do we react? In today's gospel, there was a city called Nain, or Nain as the deacon read just a moment ago. And this city of Nain certainly was experiencing a chasm, a black hole of emotion, because when Jesus went there, the entire city had been impacted by a very sad and incredible death. There was an only child of a mother, and the mother was a widow. And of course, as we know, in the Mediterranean world in those days, in the ancient world, after a father passed away, it was up to the eldest son to also take care of the mother. And so for the gospel reading to have this kind of description in the story, to say that there was a widow's only son who had passed away, that was essentially about to make that widow all but homeless. But it wasn't just that widow who was grieving. There was an entire city of people. An entire city of people that were walking outside the town, processing with the deceased. And there was a black hole, if you will. There was a void. Emotionally, physically, in so many different ways for all the people of this town who may have known and loved this young man. What is Jesus' reaction in this gospel passage when he sees these people with this void in their life? He has compassion. But it is not simply compassion, the emotion, as we might hear in the English language today. In ancient Greek, and actually in modern Greek too, there's a derivative of this But in ancient Greek, the word is esplachnisti. In other words, the word splachna, it sounds kind of gross in modern Greek because it literally means innards. But in ancient Greek, it has this connotation of he was moved deeply within himself. He was moved to the point where even his insides were moved, they were impacted in some way. Because he saw this emotional black hole for all these people there. And of course, as we know, the story continues and says that he went and raised the boy back up to life. And he says to the widow, do not grieve. And that, of course, is a great miracle. But for me, the first part of this story is more important. Because when God saw that black hole in these people's lives, that chasm that needed something to fill it, he was moved not just to compassion, but moved to his very insides. He was esplachnisti. And the moral of the story here, of course, is that the Lord has compassion and is moved in his insides for us as well when we experience something like this. We do not believe, my brothers and sisters, in a God who exists somewhere out there. We believe in a God who is here and who is in our midst and who is involved in our everyday life and who does feel the impact when we feel some kind of an impact, some kind of a black hole in our life. Why is it in the Gospel of John that we read every Anastasi, every Pascha, on the night of the resurrection, from the very beginning of the Gospel of John, we hear in the beginning was the Word. From the very beginning, John starts. And when John starts talking about the darkness, why is it that he says, when the Word comes into being, the light comes, basically, essentially? Why is it that he said the darkness could not comprehend it? Ukatelaven is the term in the New Testament. In other words, the darkness, despite the fact that it was all-encompassing, could still not overcome the light of God. No matter how bad that black hole is, in other words, no matter how bad that void is, that chasm is, there is nothing that can withstand the love of God. St. Nikolai Velimirovich says, also known as Oios Nikolaos Oservos, he lived in the 20th century. He said, there is no amount of darkness that can ever cover the light of even one candle. No amount of darkness can possibly ever cover even one candle. And so if we believe this, that light is not overcome by darkness, and it is not overcome by the void, if you will, that black hole, then how much more is God's light of impact to the black hole that might exist in our life? Whatever that might look like, by the way, emotionally, as I mentioned, spiritually, relationally, whatever it might be. When we feel, my brothers and sisters, that there is something missing, that there is some kind of an emptiness in our life, let us remember how Jesus was moved so deeply today when he saw that crowd that was grieving. And he had compassion on them. And he went and approached and was with them. And just like we hear in that first story in the Gospel of John, the darkness did not overcome the light. The light of God was present in that moment, and it overcame the darkness. So whatever darkness we might have, let us remember that God stands with us, near us, moved to compassion for us, and ready to also enter into that darkness to overcome the darkness again. Let us always remember that the Lord will indeed and does have compassion on us in those dark moments of our lives as well. God bless you. Amen.